Hello, welcome to GMASA. How many of you guys are still awake? By a show of hand. Awesome, lovely. I'm here to talk about native ads. I'll basically start off by a quick introduction. I work for Glispa Global Group. We're an advertising technology company based in Berlin, Germany. And we basically do everything from user acquisition to app monetization. Just to get to know the crowd a little bit better, how many of you here are app developers by a show of hand? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and the rest of you just are interested in native ads? That's cool. Great, so I'm probably going to ask you a couple of questions during the talk. Just help me out here so that we can make it more interactive and none of us fall asleep. Cool. Glispa, as I said, is based in Berlin. That's probably the introduction that we need right now. Let's talk about native ads. Out of all these app developers that raise their hands, how many of you use native ads to monetize? Show of hands? No one. Okay, cool. So let's basically dig into what a native ad is and why we got here, right? Traditionally, we all know that the standard display formats were banners or interstitials, and now the video format is coming up. Now, let's just skip through this. What makes a native ad? Does anyone know what is a native ad by show of hand? Okay, 1, 2, perfect, good. 3, great. A native ad is any ad that basically blends into the content of your app, right? Why would someone do that? Why would you be so nasty enough to do that? It actually helps the user by not interfering with what he's doing. Say he's reading the news, he's reading the latest articles, and an interstitial pops up. That is the most annoying thing that's ever happened to me, right? So a native ad is basically something that doesn't really stand out, it completely blends in, and that's how you can provide some sort of value to the user as a recommended content, and at the same time you make money off of it, right? How did we get here? The first thing is from an app developer's perspective, right? Traditionally, using display formats is basically just driving your users away. You spend so much time and effort to acquire these users, you harness them with push notifications and whatnot, and at the end of the day, you obviously want to make money. We've had so many discussions since morning which said the only way to make money in emerging markets like India, Southeast Asia, APAC in general, is by showing ads. 95% of your revenue will come through this channel. By making money, you don't want to drive your users who are bringing this money away, and native ads is a middle-of-the-road policy which benefits both people. Just a few stats. As compared to 2015, native ad spend has increased by at least 50%. And this is bound to increase as the months go by, because even the advertisers are thinking in a way that I don't want my ad to come in the face of the user, disturb him unnecessarily. It resonates badly with my brand. So I want to place it in such a way that it's very smooth, and only if the user is interested will he click on it, interact with it, and do something with the ad. So it works both ways. CTRs have increased by 5 times what they were in 2015, and this is also going to increase with the latest native ad formats, which we'll talk about in a second. And of course, as most of us are millennials here, in our late 20s or early 30s, we identify what ads are and we don't click on them, right? How many of you have clicked on an ad which is like a traditional display ad in the last 24 hours? Raise your hand. 1, that's basic. 2, and was it really interesting? Was it a brand that you really resonated with? Yeah, somewhat? Okay, great. We love something that is absolutely blended into the content, and if it's interesting, we interact with it. So everyone benefits with the native ads. Moving on, when IAB conducted a survey and it asked advertisers and publishers, do you actually know what a native ad is? Quite similar to this audience right here, an app developer-centric audience. No one entirely understood what a native ad is, right? So definitely this is the biggest threat to this ad format moving forward, but we're slowly addressing it. The industry's learning. Now let's talk about maybe a couple of challenges from both the supply and demand side, because for any ad format, These are the two elements that have to combine for it to work. From the supply side, which means from the app developer side, one thing that people really complain about is that it's difficult to implement. When it comes to banners or interstitials, it's easy. You take a piece of code, you define a slot, and that's it. Forget about the rest. Whereas when it comes to a native ad, you need to think about what the perfect placement is, whether it comes in your feed or whether it pops up when someone's finished doing an action. That's on you, right? That means work. So that's one challenge. And the second thing is, are there enough advertisers for a native ad slot? Right? So that's the biggest supply-facing challenge. For advertisers, on the other hand, they ask themselves, okay, so if it's going to be completely native, which means the publishers have control over the ad format, what if they place it in a way that I don't want to show my brand name? That's a big threat. What if they show it next to an adult or some sexist kind of comment where they don't want to resonate their brands with? That's a big threat. And the second thing is, will I have enough supply, right? Are there enough developers making use of this native ad format so that if I have, say, $100,000 to spend, will I actually get the film? So that's the biggest challenge. Moving forward to the positives. Now, obviously, as talks like these happen, industry thought leaders are educating people on how it's not so difficult to implement native ads. The market leaders like Google and Facebook both have come up with very easy implementations for native ads. So all you need to do is actually just copy and paste the code in your feed or wherever you see fit and wherever they recommend. The second thing is the Internet Advertising Bureau, the IAB, has come up with certain rules and standardizations which will help you play by the rules and not get kicked out by any network, may it be Google's AdX or InMobi or any of the demand sources that exist. And the third thing is adoption is definitely improving because both the demand and supply side, they see the benefits in this ad format. Again, so like digging a little deeper into this, like how can you make the most of it? How can you make it smooth for the user, right? It's all about timing for sure. Where in your app or where the user is interacting with it, where should the native ad appear? Because banners, they're always there. Interstitials pop up after every action. We know that for sure as app developers. But do we know when we should show the native ad? That's extremely crucial. Let's look at a few flow types, right? These are very basic. Again, this can be categorized based on how your app looks and feels. So the first typical flow type is in a feed. So the best example here is the Facebook app, right? We all use Facebook, yes? Show of hands? Yeah? Okay, so we're familiar with this feed model where you scroll past your social media or your news or whatever, the ad pops up, you scroll past the ad if you're not interested, and the content comes back again. The second flow type is when you're waiting for something to happen. Say you want to book a flight, you go to Make My Trip or Skyscanner, you put in Bangalore, I want to go to Delhi, say in 7 days, you're waiting for the search results to load up. That would be an ideal time to show an ad because the user is simply waiting. Yeah? And the third one is exit screens. So say a user is using a currency converter, puts in INR to USD, he gets his result and he's happy. Just before exiting the app, you show your ad, which doesn't make the user bothered because his job is done, right? And you're showing him a recommendation, and he'll probably, if it's relevant for him, he'll probably thank you for it. So those are the three basic flow types. There can be many, many more. If you have an app and are interested in implementing native ads, we have a booth, A2. Feel free to drop by anytime today, tomorrow, and we can have a chat about this. Next thing, what is the perfect native ad? Now, of course, we spoke about design, we spoke about timing, we spoke about relevance. But the combination of these three, extremely important. When we asked the industry, not many people know about this, right? So they're still struggling with it. But just a few tips and hints. Moving forward, native ads will definitely become more effective because people are understanding how to use them. And also, from the user's perspective, there can be some really bad native ad implementations, but as and when the industry learns, they'll become better and the user will also get used to the native ads. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Any questions?
Can we have a mic here, please?
Hello,
Hi.
this is Madhav here. With the growing paranoia on security and people being advised not to click on unwanted links,
Yeah.
so how successful do you think your native ad would come up and somebody would click on that? Or to put it in a different way, how do you bring in confidence to the customer so that he clicks on that?
When you say customer, you mean user?
User, yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. This fear stems from the basic fact that ads are spammy. Ads are not relevant for me and I should completely avoid them. So even when I use my browser, I'm not going to lie, I use ad blockers, right? So I don't want to see any ads whether they're relevant or not because a lot of them are quite spammy and, to be honest, not relevant, right? With native ads, one thing to consider is that because it's a part of your content, do you have an app? You do. What kind of app is it? LinkedIn app?
LinkedIn app on my mobile.
Okay, so you're taking an example.
Or let's take Ola for example.
Okay, now let's take the LinkedIn app. Let's say it's more relevant. So, what does the user go to LinkedIn for? To either find a job, to make connections, to basically interact in a professional environment, right? So, he's not there to maybe look at a sports shoe or like sign up for some travel program. He's there for doing his work. Now, if LinkedIn actually does a really good job with native ads because it has the same kind of flow that Facebook does. So I believe, from my personal experience, is that if you place the ad where the user doesn't seem intrusive, it's okay if it's not extremely relevant, but if it is, that user will become a very loyal customer for that advertiser. Again, it's very important for the ecosystem to understand what that user is, like age, gender, demographic, etc., and show him the right kind of ad. That onus lies on the middlemen, like the exchanges, like the ad networks of the world, so on and so forth.
Right, but still doesn't answer the question, which is users are trained to not click on ads. So how are you going to give that confidence to the users?
Yes, users are trained to not click on ads because they appear in places where it becomes obtrusive. When you have a native ad, it basically is like a sponsored content or a suggestion model. So if it comes across as a suggestion, then the users are more likely to click on ads, and stats have proved that over the last 2 years. So this is what I'm trying to get at. Does that make sense?
Okay, makes sense. So let's see how well it works.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Any other questions?
I think we have time for one more question. Yes, can we have a mic in the back of the room, please? To the right.
So you said native ads increase the CTRs, right?
Yeah,
to 4% or something. You said. So what I think is native ads reduce the accidental clicks.
Right.
So technically it means it should reduce the CTRs, not
Right.
increase. Second thing is how does it solve the problem for monetization problem for app developer of, let's say, a gaming app?
That's a great question. Native ads, okay, so there are presets for native ads, which means that you can either configure it in your feed or as a list or like as a grid. But recently, all the native ad vendors have come up with a custom native format. What that basically means is that you need to have 4 basic elements: title, icon, description, and something on the ad that says it's an ad. So ad choices icon or sponsored or something like this. If you have these 4 basic elements, you can configure the ad the way you want it. And this is one thing that I spoke about earlier, where advertisers are a little skeptical as to, I don't know if I want to give this control to the publisher. But this is something that gaming guys can use, and I think a lot of these gaming guys like Nazara, like some other guys, they're also doing that in very intelligent ways. So for example, if your first player, like action game is running, and you cross a tree, the tree is branded with an ad. Now, of course, the users, if they find it interesting, they click on it. But a better, like from a CTR perspective, a better way to position that would be, say, maybe when you're playing a cricket simulation game, when you pause to see the scores, that's the perfect place for an ad. But it doesn't come across as, oh, I don't want to see this right now. It's like, all right, I'm seeing the scores anyway, so I'm getting what I want, but I'm also seeing a recommendation.
Because I have not seen any big players big gaming players who are using native ads as a monetization solution.
That's changing slowly. I can actually show you examples if you stop by my booth. This is happening for sure, including Nazara, including a lot of international gaming developers. They're definitely doing native ads because this, at the end of the day, adds another revenue stream for them. They're doing rewarded video, they're doing interstitials, but native adds just another source of revenue. I'm happy to chat about this when you stop by my booth.
Thank you so much, Jeet. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we'll wrap this session and we'll take the conversation offline at the booth.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just one thing to add, we're also having a workshop tomorrow on monetization. So all those guys who are interested in knowing more about how ad mediation works, what is programmatic, how it's different from like traditional ad networks, be sure to attend it. It's 11 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you so
11
much.
o'clock tomorrow. Thank you, Jeet. And I'll request Prabhu from GMASA to please present Jeet with a memento, thanking him for his time and insights today.
Thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Jeet Thakkar from glispa.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeet, and thank you, Prabhu. And for the next talk today, I'd like to invite on stage Kanan Rai from Google, who's here to talk about what's new with Google Play. Please welcome Ms. Rai.